Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the MyFootballWriter YouTube channel, and welcome back to a bit of transfer talk. But rather than what we usually do on the channel, where we talk about an upcoming signing for Norwich City, we're going to talk about a confirmed signing by Norwich City. Honestly, this happened within the last half an hour before recording this video. Norwich City, a very heavily sought after target in the transfer window. They bring in Harry Darling, the 25-year-old English centre-back, mainly a ball-playing defender who has worked under their new first-team manager I nearly said Harry Darling again there. No, in Liam Manning. He worked with him at MK Dons, but Norwich have got their third summer signing across the line. They've already signed Jacob Wright on a permanent deal after his loan signing from Manchester City. They brought in Daniel Grimshaw as a second choice keeper. Looks as if, as long with a first choice keeper, they actually want a third choice keeper to sign as well. That's rumoured to be a free agent from the Premier League who is younger than Grimshaw. But if you want to know more about the Grimshaw and Jacob Wright signings, just go onto the Transfer Talk playlist. It will be linked up at the end of this video, or you can go on our channel, look at our playlist, and you can have a look at the videos we did about those signings. But let's talk about Harry Darling. So Norwich have got another centre-back in. It felt like that was going to be their main focus, especially with how Liam Manning likes to set his teams up with a 3 at the back or 5 in the back, depending on how you see it. It will be 3 defenders when Norwich are in possession under Liam Manning, like he had at his previous clubs of MK Dons and also Bristol City. So Norwich, they needed another centre-back, and especially with the age profile of their centre-halves. You know, you look at Shane Duffy, who's 33 now, and they brought in Jose Cordoba to be the left-footed centre-back under Johannes Torap, so that they had a right-footer and a left-footer. Very important to have that in modern football. But Norwich instantly needed another centre-back who was first-team calibre, and they've got one in Harry Darling, a player who made 39 appearances for Swansea City last season, scored 5 goals and got 3 assists. So even from the back, he's not half bad in terms of goal scoring and creating opportunities. Actually, at MK Dons, when he worked under Liam Manning, made 47 appearances under Manning, and he scored 10 goals. So Manning clearly knows how to get a little bit out of his centre-back in to try and get him scoring goals. But Manning as well works under Russell Martin, of course, Norwich legend, worked with him at Swansea City and has gone on to be a relatively solid centre-half at championship level. Had major interest in him over the summer. Believe Southampton and also Rangers were heavily linked with Darling and looking to bring him in to help their teams. Of course, Russell Martin, now the manager of Rangers, so would have known Darling and how he works under his play style. But it's a perfect signing for Norwich, as already covered. They needed a centre-back who is of a very good championship standard and is a solid performer on a weekly basis in the championship. And they've got that. You look at, I mean, you can't really rate a player based off sort of average ratings in matches, but from FOTMob's average ratings, it was 7.1. So, you know, if you've got a player who's 7 out of 10 on average, you know, he's probably going to be all right. But of course, you can't base it solely on that. And his goals, well, you know, he's a defender. You can't base it on goal scoring and assists. But of course, football's watched with your eyes, and hopefully our eyes will be watching a very good player at Norwich. But we'll slightly go back on to the actual signing itself. So signing on free after his contract expired this summer, literally must have expired. Well, I think his contract expires on the 30th of June. So in 2 weeks' time, his contract will be up with Swansea and he will join as a Norwich City player. So brilliant business, of course. When you look at Darling and his performances at championship level, you would think, you would think he would sort of command quite a heavy fee, but clearly didn't have much interest in staying at Swansea City, who have sort of lingered around mid-table in the 2 seasons he's been there, and now comes to a Norwich team who are off the back of a project which didn't really work for them under Johannes Torap, and he now joins a completely new project where the overhaul of players is probably going to be quite major. If Norwich are looking at getting rid, of course, this isn't Darling's position, but if they're looking at getting rid of 3 goalkeepers to bring in 3 replacements, then it says a lot for other positions on the pitch. But it's great that they've got a centre back in. As I've already said a few times, they really needed one. You look at the depth there; it isn't exactly the greatest. You have Cordoba and Duffy, and then Callum Doyle won't be re-signing after his loan spell from Manchester City. Of course, Grant Hanley did leave the club in January, so there's very other few senior players who straight away you can look at for Norwich and in terms of depth at centre back. So especially now when they're going to start 3 under Liam Manning in every game, so you would probably expect it to be most likely Cordoba, not Hanley, sorry, I meant Duffy. So for some reason I get them confused, but no, it will be most likely Cordoba with Duffy and Darling as Norwich's back 3, which on paper it's not bad. You have the experience of Duffy, who's played internationally and in the Premiership, and then you have the youthfulness of Cordoba, and then you have the experience and know-how of Darling, who knows the perfect play style under the new manager in Manning, having worked with him before. So sort of moving on to that's a major advantage for Norwich. It's absolutely huge that they have brought in a player who already knows this style of play, who hasn't got to necessarily adapt to it across pre-season, and then maybe it doesn't work out, and then you go into the new season, and then it takes a couple of matches for players to still learn and integrate into those styles of play. So it's great, really, that in Harry Darling, Norwich have a player who straight away will know what is expected of him in his position in terms of when Norwich have the ball, when they don't have the ball, when they're defending, when they're attacking, when they transition into an attacking phase, or when they go into a defensive phase. So no, it's fantastic. And especially when you look at that goal scoring record when he was working under Manning at MK Dons, 10 goals from centre-back is extremely impressive. Like that's quite amazing numbers for a defender who's playing in a back 5. I would imagine a lot of them came from set pieces, which Norwich haven't exactly been the greatest at this season since Nick Stanley was brought in. But we're not really here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Liam Manning and Harry Darling, really, in this. But Darling, at 25 years old, a player who has got a lot of good years ahead of him, a lot of potential still, even though he's not necessarily in that sort of age bracket where you consider a player young. He's very much approaching his prime, and you would like to think that he would want to play at a team who, it's been made clear last season and this one, Norwich's clear ambition is getting into the playoffs. And Harry Darling is a player who, as we've covered with Swansea, has been one of their better performers week in, week out, albeit Swansea have, they've somewhat flirted with the playoffs only slightly, but have mainly just been a mid-table sort of run-of-the-mill championship team. So the next step really for a player of Darling's age and ability really is going to a team who can be in the playoffs and who will compete at the higher end of the table. So of course, there are so many other factors that still could affect that. It could be that the signing of Darling, maybe it doesn't work. Maybe under Manning, even though they've worked together before, maybe it's slightly different this time around in terms of sort of the style of play and how Norwich approach a lot of their games. Will it work perfectly? We don't know, because for all we know, Norwich could go and sign another 2 centre-backs, and all of a sudden it's a bit of a sort of, your mind wonders as to, who's actually going to start here? But are Norwich going to use all the new signings, or is someone going to just sit back and maybe wait for an opportunity of the players that Norwich already have? But it probably won't end that way. I would like to think Norwich probably need another centre half, because you can't just sort of go into a season where you're playing 3 centre backs and you only really have 3 players there in Cordoba, Duffy, and now Darling, who are probably nailed on week in, week out starters. But no, it's overall, in my opinion, it's a fantastic bit of business. Signing a player who is approaching his prime years, has been a very strong player at a decent championship team. You could argue it in Swansea, and a ball-playing defender as well, which in modern football is so important. You want defenders who are comfortable with the ball at their feet. You don't want them to sort of panic when an opposition forward is applying pressure on them. You want them to be able to pass the ball in short and long distances, which Darling is more than capable of. If you look at his statistics around that, around his passing range and his completed passes and accuracy of passes as such. But no, on a free transfer, brilliant. Norwich don't have to pay anything except his wages, which I would imagine wouldn't be too high, although that may turn out to maybe not be the case. I think if you want to go and look at it, I'm pretty sure Salary Sport will have the exact figures for his Swansea contracts, and then maybe you can sort of base it off that and see what Norwich are potentially paying him. But no, on a free transfer, he already knows the manager quite well, having played under him and doing quite successfully at MK Dons. Believe they just about missed out on automatic promotion. I want to say it was just by a point that MK Dons team failed and then lost out in the playoffs. So no, Norwich have got their centre half really that they wanted. They perhaps need another one, but no, it's a good signing for them. That they got in a position that was key and that needed addressing, and now that they can sort of maybe end their centre-back search for the time being and move on to continuing to find their first and third choice goalkeeper, maybe a few more midfielders and attackers. But for the meantime, Harry Darling is Norwich's third signing of the summer window, and it's one that brings a lot of positivity, I would say, to Norwich City fans. As I've said a lot of times already, he knows the manager, he knows his play style, so it won't take him long to integrate into the playing style. Maybe it might take a while to integrate with other players as part of the group, because that's how it always works for new players at new teams. They are human beings at the end of the day, and maybe they don't always get along with one another, but it'd be the world would be a boring place if we all did. But what are your thoughts on Norwich's signing of Harry Darling on a free from Swansea City? 3-year deal with an option to extend it by another year. So again, brilliant. 3-year deal can turn it into a 4-year. We'll see what happens. But what do you all make of it? Let us know in the comments down below. Harry Darling is Norwich's third signing of the summer window, and it's the second since the arrival of Liam Manning as Norwich City manager. Let us know your thoughts, and we'll see you for the next video of ours here on the MyFootballWriter YouTube channel.